What is up, good people? Thank you so much for checking out this video. Some people have sent me some requests for some videos. I am getting to it. I have about 8, 9, something like that, videos that are set to be released. Most of those are answering people's questions. Those are set to release like on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The ones I do like on Tuesdays, Thursdays, if I do them at all, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. If I do them at all, it's things I just kind of think of off the fly. Although this one is kind of a response video. I think I took a little too long to get to this one, but I am getting to your questions. The best way to ask me a question is to email me, because sometimes I screenshot the question and sometimes I get to it or not. So, and sometimes I remember to do it, screenshot it or not. But if you definitely want a question, make sure you hit me an email. The email is in the description, as well as my other services. All right, so let's get into it. Age gap dating. Before I get into age gap dating, I want to talk about, and I'm going to include age gap dating and wage gap dating. And here's a screenshot of someone who's concerned about this, right, and all that. So I want to try to break this down, because I read the comments, and I just try to give my opinion about what's going on. And we got this thing going on with boys. I don't think that some people really grasp how bad it is. I've mentioned all these different scholars who are looking into it, but you got to take a look and see what's happened. And just like I ask you to take a good analysis about what, how the boys in your family have been talked to, treated, and all that, you got to take a look at how the girls are as well. How the girls are treated. You got to take a look at how the boys are treated and how they're talked to, whether they're emasculated, whether they're given opportunities. And this in particular in the black community has been an issue, where girls were given school and the boys were encouraged to drop out because they don't need education. So just give them a trade and then they'll do whatever. And then that same type of philosophy, for some reason, continues throughout our lineage, and it continues is pervasive today. So this ties into the age gap dating, because when you look around and you're 35 and up, and you are not seeing your peers on the same level as you, right? You're sitting in a corporate CEO suite. Well, number one, you got to look at, just be honest. How did you get there? Were you given different opportunities that other males weren't given? And if you were, right, because remember, like a lot of times, ladies were given second chances. You came down with a kid or whatever, you got all these different grants and loans and the ability to go to college, where the males who still had the same child were arrested and thrown into jail, had their driver's license taken away from them, all this different types of things. So there's two different standards that we came to. So you think that you just kind of were determined and just do it. What opportunities were you given? And were those same opportunities given to boys? I'm not talking about student loans and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going back and forth. And I love the conversation, right? Going back and forth with somebody about student loans. Listen, no, guys don't want to take out loans. We don't want to take out loans. The only reason I went to school, student loans have been around forever. I refused to take out student loans when I was a kid. I took a class and I paid for it. I was going to community college. I paid for it. That's how I was going. And then I did get some Pell Grants. I did get some Pell Grants. So they are available. But I refuse to take out student loans. I know the people walking out of college with $150,000, $200,000 worth of debt, 4-year school, depending on what school you go to. If you don't get any type of scholarships or whatever things are. So guys don't want to do that. That is not the thing. That's not the thing. The other thing to keep in mind is, before we really dive into age gap dating here, is that on average, black men are still making more than black women. Still on average. So don't forget that. So, but again, this isn't a competition. I'm not trying to make this a competition thing. I'm really not trying to make this a competition thing. But I am trying to help you to understand what has been done to in particular the black boys, right? When they push certain types of education, right? They also scale back on others, right? It costs less to, send a kid to college for psychology in comparison to a trade school, because trade school you gotta build stuff, right? You gotta have the money for these different resources and all that, right? You gotta have resources to create a heating, HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning class, school, right? Trucking school, I'm just saying that these are obstacles that our cities run into. These are obstacles that people run into, and if they want to do it themselves, and it's just simpler and easier to send the kids to college. Or all you need is maybe a laptop, and it used to be a couple of books. Now you just need a laptop. All right. So just take a look at the dynamic, and let's try to find. Let us all together collectively try to find some solutions. Because when you look around the landscape, and you sit in your corporate office and you look around, you don't see any black male peers. It's not solely because they're lazy and don't want to do it. It's because sometimes the opportunity wasn't there, and who's talking to these young boys and telling them that they can't do it? Who's doing that, right? So we need to have those conversations. And the same people who talk to you that told you to be strong, independent, and to make sure that you can be your own boss and level up and go as far, are they having the same conversations with the same intensity and the same consistency with their boys? And are they following through with that, right? Whole nother dynamic, whole nother conversation that I've had in other episodes. So you look around, and now you see that there's nobody worth dating. So now you want to date, quote unquote, down. And that's what I want to talk about. This whole dating down, dating, age gap dating, right? And listen, I have no smoke for it as far as positive, negative. It's what you want. I do think that there is such a thing, that most women want someone who's better than them, who is smarter, taller, more dominant, and makes more money, and in many cases older, wiser. Wisdom comes with age, right? So if you're 35, can you date a guy who's 25? If you're 40, can you date a guy who's 25, 30, 35? I think I took a screenshot. I'm pretty sure I did. If I did, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it, particularly as women doing it. I think it's a little uncomfortable. I think there is. I don't want to call it intimidation factor, although, yeah, you know what, we'll call it that, because I do think that some men don't like that, don't want that, and in the comment section, some people have said that their boyfriends or whatever have sabotaged them and all that kind of stuff, right? So there may be an acting out portion that goes along with it. So if you can take all that and take any possible type of backlash, and let me tell you, I don't know a lot about this dynamic, but I can't imagine somebody's telling you, yeah, it's okay, I don't really care about your money, I don't care about your age ain't nothing but a number. But I hate to say it like this, but a real man, he's going to be concerned about that. I think a man wants to be better. And when he's not, I think that there's going to be some self-esteem issues that may manifest themselves in different ways. I just think that's the way that it is. So, you got to ask yourself, are you able to deal with that? So another thing I want to talk about before I got to this age gap dating, I knew I was going to forget it. I was thinking about this when I was in the shower. And there's this idea, I talked about this before. There's a couple of guys, I guess maybe more than one, young dudes who are rizzing these girls up, who are rizzing people up. They're going into grocery stores, rizzing people up. And I just saw one rizzing them up as in getting their phone numbers, and then I don't know if they're actually, sleeping with them. I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're just seeing if they can do it. I don't know. Following girls around Walmart, Target, whatever, just getting their numbers. I don't know what they're doing with them. But there is another guy that I just saw the other day who's doing the same thing, and he is going to, prison inmates and all this kind of stuff, and getting their stuff and then hitting them up and then talking to them. And of course the girls are, going for it. And he's putting it out there, putting the screenshots out there about how he's sleeping with them and blocking them and all kind of stuff. I talked about the whole, elephant type of thing, and somebody needs to stop this kid. It may sound cute, and he's okay. He's getting a bunch of tail and all this kind of stuff, But the emotional, psychological damage long term that you're doing to these ladies, they're already in a vulnerable state because they're just getting released from doing time. That's number one. Number two, they're probably trying to exchange in some way, while they might not be able to articulate it. They're probably more than likely trying to exchange sex for love, commitment, place to stay, stability. I mean, you name it. So, you get all this type of stuff is going on, and this guy's out here just taking advantage of that. So, so and he's a young dude. These two dudes I'm telling you probably 25, 26 and under, right? They're definitely under that. And they're talking to ladies who, from their pictures, are in the late 30s, 40s. One in the store was as old as 60. So what is that? I mean, hurt people, damaged people damage other people, broken people break other people. So if this guy's out there doing that, right? These people have already got issues. They've already been incarcerated in this situation. You're going out there, you want to mess them over, sleep with them, then block them, right? What does that do to psyche? How does that affect how they talk to their young cousins, nieces, nephews, kids? How does that? You're perpetuating this craziness. So I know he's not going to watch me or listen to me, but if he does, I'm telling you, you're part of the very systemic problem that we're dealing with. And you don't want anybody. I'm sure you don't want anybody sleeping with your sister, cousin, and by proxy, you're doing that, right? By proxy, you might not think what you're doing has any effect. Okay, I'm just dealing with her, but she has a ripple effect. She has a circle of friends that she's going to talk to, interact with, and she's going to infect them with psychological damage because of the actions that these guys are taking, and anybody else who's doing that, right? It's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. So, so that's age gap dating. I mean, that's a couple of things you got to consider. The whole financial thing. Can you really? I mean, this guy may not be as financially sound as you, academically achieved. Not own as many businesses. Do you want to coach somebody through that? Do you want to talk to somebody through that? And if you can do that, if you don't really want, or it's not a necessity for you to do that, then that's fine. Okay. But again, I think that the issue is that a lot of times you're looking around for people in your own age group, cohort, and you can't find them. You can't find them because they haven't been made. You can't find them because of time, energy, and investment from the government, from their elders, from their uncles, from their fathers, from the church. Nobody has invested wholesale into black boys. Ask yourself, when in history, actually there was a time, I won't say this, there was a time when the government invested in black men, and that was when they wanted them to join the military. I think it was in a book when affirmative action was white. I think it was in that book where the author talks about, they needed more people for the military, World War I, World War II, right? All these different stuff they got going on. They needed more boys for the military. But because nobody had invested, this is important, because nobody had invested in the education of these young black men, they weren't up to academic par to join the military. And so what happened was, the government had to say, they had to start special programs to get these young black men onto reading level, but that was in their own selfish interest to get them to join the military, right? So there was technically a time when the government actually invested in them, but it was for their own selfish reasons about joining the military. Okay, so besides that point that I just labeled, when has there ever been a time when we just invested in black men wholesale, just black men, grants and all this kind of stuff? And thank you to somebody who sent me, talked about different frats having youth organizations or items for young people. It's great. It needs to be broadcast more. I'm not a frat. I'm not in the frat. I'm not Greek, if people keep asking me. So I don't know. But I'm glad that somebody's doing. I'm just asking for somebody to do something. I think churches need to have that. Sometimes I think the churches think too insular, think too too kingdom oriented and not no earthly good. I remember, when I was a youth leader of the church. Yeah, I was a youth leader. When I was a youth leader of the church, I tried to start a scholarship because I was going to school at that time. I was a young guy, 18, 19, something like that, and I graduated from high school, and there was nothing. And I was like, you know what? I can't go to my church. I'd been in this church. My mother had joined that particular church when I was 5 years old. So from that time to 18, we're giving little Sunday school offerings and different this. You get your little job, right? We was one of those tithe-paying churches and all that. So we give a lot of money. We give a lot of, my mother gave a lot of money. And so, when it come time for me to go to school, there was nothing. My mother didn't have any money. I talked about the loan thing. My mother didn't have any money, so I got to pay for it myself. And then I did get some Pell Grants. But like buying books and other stuff, I had to buy books and stuff. I had to do it myself. And then, the church couldn't offer me anything. I thought that was wrong. So I wanted to do something about that. So I tried to set up a scholarship, and it just got a lot of pushback. Just, we don't think that way. It was just, you got to have a forward thinking church. It was another one of the reasons I just was disenchanted with all that. If your church doesn't have a scholarship, man, for your kids, and you've been going to that church, your kids were born in that church, and you go to that church, your church don't have a scholarship for boys and girls. That's a problem to me. It's a problem. It's a problem. What are you doing? What are you doing? So these are all things that you got to consider. So if you don't mind being, quote unquote, the leader, you don't mind taking the more dominant role. I mean, how do you? I'm not a woman, so this is all kind of new to me. I mean, well, not new to me, but this is all me. I mean, you got to deal with that. Would you feel funny dating somebody who's, younger than you, and he may not know as much about life. He may not. He may know more. I don't know. So how do you look at that? And society says one thing, right? So there is a point in society where we say that certain things ought to be a certain way, and then this so-called, although I don't think it's truly a patriarchy in the United States. I don't get pushback about that. I don't think it's patriarchy at all. But it's still more palatable for a young older guy to be with a younger woman. It's not. I think it's becoming more acceptable for the older woman to be with a younger dude. But who cares? I mean, do what's best for you. And if you like this guy and he's, he can meet your needs, as long as you can meet him, I mean, I don't see the issue with it. I don't see the issue with it. You got to know what it is, and really, do the same thing as doing with everything else. Do a good job vetting, do a good job researching, making sure if you want to have children by this guy, that he is still fatherly type material, that he's still a hard worker, that he's going somewhere in life, that he's actually got plans to make things happen as far as where he wants to be and where he wants to go. So as long as all that is lining up and all that is what really is the issue? I don't really care. I don't care. I mean, just much like the interracial relationships, the poly relationships, the age gap dating thing doesn't really matter to me. You just got to think about leadership, headship. Is that something you need? Is that something you require? Do you require a man to be more than you, smarter, wiser, right? Know how to do things? I mean, you got to just consider all that. And if he can meet that, and even if an older guy got in your own level can't meet that, I would say get away from that dude. Don't give that guy your time, energy, or attention. But if they can meet that, whatever, man. Ain't nobody paying your bills. I'm not paying your bills. So again, this was asked to me. This is my opinion. But in everything that I really want to say, I really want to advocate for young boys to become the best versions of themselves. And it's more than a conversation to them. This has to be a conversation that is just like I laid out with the military. They had selfish desires to educate their boys, educate the young black men. You have to develop that same selfish desire to educate your black men. If you look around in your cohort, you're sitting in an office, you're sitting in a corner office, you're sitting at in a board meeting, you look around, there's nothing, there's no other black men of faces of color, black men. Black men. They're not all sitting in prison. That's always been a lie. Are they all, are they given the chance to excel at the same level, given racism, given one guy doesn't want to be in a competition with another guy, academically, what was his family, what are all of our collectively our family structures like, right? How much pushing, and ask yourself, really do an internal ask, how much pushing do we do of our boys? And I'm not just talking about yelling at them saying get yourself together, blah blah blah, that ain't gonna work. You gotta drive him to the tutoring place. You gotta drive him to the tutoring place. You got to drive him to practice. You got to drive him to be with mentors. You got to take him to these different places. You got to show up. It's the beginning of the school season right now, and usually Octoberish, Novemberish or so, they start having parent-teachers night. You as an aunt, you as a cousin, you as an older grandmother, whatever, mother, you got to show up for the person who's going to kindergarten, and you got to show up for the teenager when he's a sophomore and junior in high school. You got to show up and let them know you still care about their education. You cared about it when they were young, cute toddlers or barely, learning how not to crap in themselves. And you got to have that same energy when they're 15 and they're trying to deal with all their emotions. You got to do it. I'm talking to you, men and women. You got to care about that. But to the ladies out there, you guys are in a special, unique place where you're sitting in these seats. You are administrating school boards. You are in the classroom. And you have a unique ability to cultivate a new generation of boys. And if you think insularly, if you think singularly, if you think, only about yourself, and I just want a man for me, and you don't care that your daughter has a man, and you don't care about your niece has a man, you don't care about your goddaughter has a man, then we're going to continue to be in this mess. You have the chance to turn around. Yes, men should do it. I advocate for men to reach back, to advocate for men to do this, that, and the other. But men aren't in these suites. Men are, right, there's something like a 20,000, if the numbers that I've heard are correct, 20,000 less black men in collegiate teaching academic faculties, right? 20,000 less. Think about that, right? Here I am, a black man, right? I barely teach kids. I barely teach any black students. Some I teach some. That's why I don't let kids drop out. I talk to them, right? I do what I can do. I used to teach on campus, right? I just can't do that anymore. But they need to see you. They need to see these black police officers. They need to see these black high school teachers, college professors. They need to see them. Our politicians. They need to see them. So, yeah, we all have to be part of the problem. So as long as people are pointing the finger saying you do this, we all got to be part of the solution. So if you look around your cohort, you don't see anyone. Don't just say black men ain't edge. They ain't doing nothing. Ask yourself why are they in this situation? Because there's been a deliberate lack of investment. There was a reason, mass incarceration and the drug war and all this, really, really ravaged the black community in particular, right? Our prison sentences were longer than other people's, right? It's still happening today, right? A young kid, I covered stories like this on my other channel, right? Where young kids in college, white judges would be like, oh, we're not gonna, I don't want to, rape charges or grape charges. We're not gonna sentence this kid to jail because it's gonna mess up his life. Meanwhile, the black kid in the same situation gets 40 years. This is your kids. These are your husbands. This is them. So and that, think about what I just said, right? So this kid gets 40. So I don't want any. So now a kid's gonna say, I don't want anything to do with college. Not all of them, but some that, like, man, I'm gonna stay far away from that as possible. I'm gonna stay far away from that as possible. So just have a perspective. It's not an end all be all. I'm not giving a grand answer. So, but if you want that, you gotta make them. If you want that, you gotta make them. So, I think I've rambled about this long enough. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions. What do you guys think about age gap dating? It doesn't bother me. Date who you want, love who you want, as long as it's legal, as long as they can sign a contract, know what's going on. I don't really care. But for years, age gap dating was a thing all throughout human history, and now, because of different dynamics, financial dynamics, women are able to do it, and they want to do it, and all that. So, as long as he passes all the other tests, what's the big deal? Let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Much love and peace.